Well, let's have some intros go through so that way everybody's familiar. Hopefully, by this point, you know who I am. Let's allow Matt to introduce himself. I want to introduce the CTO of Young Brands, Matt McDole. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, everybody.
Bye.
My name is Matt McDole. As he said, I'm the CTO of Yum Brands. For those who do not know what Yum Brands is, it owns KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and Habit Burger and Grill. We operate in 155 countries, over 50,000 stores, one of the world's largest QSR brands in the world. And because we're so large, we're one of the few QSR companies that gets to build its own tech, right? It's not vendor driven. So we have a platform called Byte that is intended to sort of be the restaurant in the box for the technology for stores. So we have our own Android-based point of sale systems, our own sort of e-commerce, headless e-commerce platforms, everything, top to bottom. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here and speak with you all and kind of talk with you about some stuff Danny wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time thinking about the questions that I was going to ask. And I think for everyone here, there's going to be value in one way, shape, or form, whether you're completely a beginner or you're a very seasoned expert in the industry. I think we have come up with a very, very interesting line of questioning. So maybe before we even start talking about engineers and AI tools, let's start with where Yum Brand really operates. In the stores, with people serving millions of customers daily. You mentioned AI helping store managers schedule staff and lowering cognitive load through drive-thru ordering and other measures. What outcome matters most to you there? Is it accuracy, speed, retention, or employee happiness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think whenever we think about AI being applied to this industry a bit, like a fact that I think is universally regarded as true is it's never been harder to run a quick service restaurant than it is today, right? And it's something that I didn't really appreciate until I started working here. But maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago even, a store had to worry about 2 channels, like drive-through, front counter, that was it. They now have like 6 or 7, right? They now have aggregators, sometimes 3 or 4 aggregators that are coming and picking up and orders and injecting orders. They have kiosks in the stores that are injecting orders. They have, their own digital platforms that are doing this as well. Then just the pace of change in the competition these days. Before where menus would change quarterly, they're changing weekly or daily. Promotions are being run constantly. That has a huge operational burden on the employees in the store. So I think one of the major things that we're looking for whenever we're thinking about AI as it's applied to our industry is how do we improve the lives of our employees, right? Because, if you think about all this technology that kind of gets applied in these stores, one risk that any business can have is that the interactions can kind of become a little bit sterile and cold, right? The human connection is lost a little bit. Everybody's just going and only interacting with the kiosk or, with other outside technology and stuff that is, you're ordering online. And my leaders have repeatedly told me the importance of that human connection. And they're not long moments, these are short moments, but you want to have really strong hospitality and really sort of bring that connection between the employee and the customer. And if you think about how do you do that, it's through happy employees, right? So, ways that we can encourage having happy employees is dialing down the noise on these stores because it's so difficult these days. So we have several voice AI pilots, for example, some of the largest in the world across multiple brands and countries. And one of the surprising metrics that I think have come out of this is stores that have voice AI pilots going on, the retention goes up, the employee retention goes up. And at first, I think if you think about it, it does make a little bit of sense because, these employees are doing a lot in these stores. And if you can, dial down the noise, allow them to, let that take that burden and that load while they're doing other things, it makes the job more enjoyable. So I think that's one way we think about it. The other way that I think that we kind of think about it is if you take any market, any set of stores, there's going to probably be like a natural distribution curve of store performance. And whenever you look at okay, well, why are these 10% of this, if you normalize it across location and things like that, why are these 10% of stores being run so well? And for example, I went and I was in KFC UK and I met the store manager for one of our flagship stores. He'd been there 15 years. And he ran that store. He knew that market super well. He knew exactly how much inventory they needed. He knew how to dial up the labor if there's going to be a soccer match. He knew all these little intuition things. And I think one of the things that we're looking to do is how can we take that wisdom that you kind of spoke about earlier and apply that wisdom, so it kind of lifts all boats. So that way, stores can have almost like the benefit of some of these insights that have these really seasoned store managers or area managers, but apply it everywhere. So whenever Yum looks at AI, that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
As someone that fried chicken for so long, I could tell you when that school bus comes and you weren't prepared for it, never a good feeling. All right. I think that's, a great setting stone, right? But of course, what happens in the store is made possible by what happens in the code. Let's talk about your engineering teams. You run official pilots with Cursor, Claude, and Claude across hundreds of engineers. What types of work did you actually greenlight first? And what did you keep out of scope?
Yeah. I mean, I guess first, like Yum, we've run a couple pilots throughout sort of this current era of AI. I think in early 2023, we did an AI coding tooling pilot then, and we actually wrote an internal white paper on it. Andy Gibble, one of the engineering directors, wrote this paper. And at that time, I think it was like a broad search, like what are all the tools that are there? Are any of these super valuable? So for that pilot, we did sort of 2 weeks with each one of the tools with a fixed cohort of developers and then had them sort of give qualitative and quantitative metrics. And the conclusion out of that was that the tooling then was still too early. GitHub Copilot did the best out of the mix that we did, and some developers still continue to use it after the pilot, but it was not transformative in the way that like the current crop of tools are. So earlier in this year, we started a new pilot. And what's kind of interesting is almost none of the tools that were in the previous pilot were strong contenders in the next pilot, which shows you how quickly this field is changing. It's actually like if you work at a large company, it's one of the concerns you might have is just getting things through procurement and then into the company. You don't want to get locked into one of these tools for a multi-year agreement because you could very quickly, in 6 months, 8 months, that's not going to be the new hot tool that people want to use. So that's something that you're going to have to kind of overcome a little bit. But for this current crop that we did Claude Code, we did Cursor across hundreds of developers, and we saw a lot of benefit. We didn't really restrict it to any particular use cases, and we tried to do a wide swath of users across our company at both brands and at Yum. I'm going to kind of speak to sort of 3 anecdotal use cases that we saw that I think were really strong. Like one of them was onboarding. So onboarding new devs. So I would say, like, for example, on the Eric Anderson, who you gave a shout out earlier, he works on the Byte Commerce product that is this federated GraphQL API. It's a complex and rich environment and probably is kind of difficult to kind of get up to speed on whenever you're first joining. And normally what you do is you sit down and pair with the senior engineer and spend time. And, it's going to take weeks before you're fully up to speed. But for new developers that were onboarding during this pilot that we gave these tools, it's really powerful for them to be able to clone the repos of our tools, give them some documentation, and then just let them ask questions about the environment, about the setup, and then go to the senior engineers whenever they have hit a wall and and they need help. So that reducing onboarding time is just a great immediate benefit, like no regrets, super easy. Another benefit that we saw was an incident investigation. So I think about 3 weeks ago, we had a Pizza Hut incident with a bridge call, and I was just an observer on this call. And the issue was that customers were trying to add a product to their cart. This is like a promotional product that is about to be available. So if you tried to add it to your cart early, it wouldn't work. But when the time came that it should have been able to be added to his cart, it wasn't. And only after 15 minutes after this time was it working, right? So there was like this 15-minute delay. So that was the bug. And I was on the incident call, as people were trying to investigate why it might be. I'm just an observer in this call. I'm not incident commander right now. I'm just trying to stay quiet so I don't get in people's way. But we have had a lot of time bugs in the past, and we have our own time library called Ocarina This is Golang time availability library. Yeah. And I was like, hey, this is for sure an ocarina. I'm like, this has got to be an ocarina. We've had so many, every time there's like a daylight savings thing, we have another incident called. And I thought we had all the bugs hammered out of it, but maybe there wasn't. So I cloned that repo down and I fired Claude Code at it. And I gave it the description of what the current external behavior of the bug was and says, do you see anything in Ocarina that might be causing this? Right. And it churned for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And it said, I see nothing in this current library that could be causing this bug. And it says, but it could be in the calling code for this bug. So I was like, okay. So the calling code in this instance is our cart service. So I cloned down the cart service directly into the Ocarina folder because that's where I launched Claude Code. So it would operate in that context. And I said, cool, I've dropped in the calling code. Please walk through the cart service. Tell me if you see anything in the calling of Ocarina that might be resulting in this bug. It churned for like 1 minute and 20 seconds. And it says, yes, I have found it. It looks like you're adding availability time to your current add to cart time. And that is sort of what is likely causing this issue. And it proposed a patch. And I was like, oh man, I wonder if this is really it. And I kid you not, literally at the same instant, right as I was typing a message to the CTO for Pizza, I was like, oh, I think I found this thing. He's like, oh, I found the bug. And I was like, is it on line 132 of the cart code? He's like, how do you know? And I'm like, oh, yeah. So,
I mean, wait for you to figure it out.
Yeah. So he had it first. But I mean, still, it's like, I feel like that was super powerful. As like an observer, that I have not been in either one of those code bases in a long time. And the fact that like it could hone in on this bug during a high pressure incident scenario, you could imagine that you could have several of these sort of spawning and kind of like agentic workflows working through a number of different code bases trying to track down this bug. So that was really powerful. I think that the third thing that we've seen is we've had, since we started the pilot, we've created some new products, right? So a lot of our stuff are existing code bases, existing teams, but we stood up a new product. And what this product does is it does all the integrations with the food aggregators. So with DoorDash and Uber Eats, and we're no stranger to integrating with aggregators. And that task that you have to do, you have to map Yum's menu format to the different aggregators' menu format. And then you have to map your order format back and forth between sort of Yum's order format and their order format. And it is a very tedious job to do, right? And it usually requires a lot of human input to do, and it takes weeks for us to get right. So we stood up what I would kind of call one of our first AI native teams. So this is a team that is, equipped with all of this AI coding tooling. It's a much leaner, smaller team that was asked to kind of go after this problem space. And I don't know. There it goes. It's one shot of the menu mapping, just as an example, was about 85% there, right? Just the one shot. And then after that, it took us like a couple of days to do some cleanup and changes. But I think we had like all 3 US aggregators fully integrated into this new serverless service that we launched in like a couple weeks. Like that would have taken us months to do before. And you can imagine there's hundreds of food aggregators across the globe, the amount of time that's going to save. So whenever you have these tasks that line up that are just like, this stuff is really good at, it's amazing how much time that you can save. And this was also, I think, a good model for us for like what a future team could look like as we start attacking some of these new problems.
Okay, just off of that, could I ask, by saving all that time, what does that enable you to do? Because there's been arguments where if you save all this time, that just means, people are going to be sitting on the sideline. There's not going to be as much valuable impact that you can make because now you're just, basically pushing pencils at that point. Like, what does that enable you to do? Especially when you talk about like hundreds of aggregations across the board, like that's a lot of time saved.
Yeah, I mean, we are developer constrained, I would say. So like, just getting, if it would have taken us 3 months to get just Pizza Hut US and all of its aggregators shifted over, and then maybe 6 or 7 months to finish Taco Bell and KFC US and then start doing international brands, it means we can go and attack those international brands much more quickly, right? And this new system is much more reliable. It saves a lot of money. There's less order cancellations because it's more reliable. That saves the company money. So we can accomplish more because we were able to bring these tools to bear.
That's awesome. Well, this next one, it's one of my favorite quotes that I've been referencing a lot lately. And Kent Beck, for those that don't know, phenomenal on Twitter and whatnot, you should check him out. But he notably said something. he actually stayed away from ChatGPT and other tools for a long period of time. And recently on Twitter, he said, after finally interacting with ChatGPT, after staying away from it for so long, why am I echoing? The value of 90% of my skills just dropped to $0. The leverage for the remaining 10% went up 1,000 times. I need to recalibrate. You rightly pointed out that there are risks for engineers all across the board. Let's flip that. AI can now instantly generate complex code, but that changes what we value in engineers. In a world where AI can instantly generate, in a world where AI can change, does their value shift from knowing the answer to possessing the taste of wisdom to ask the right questions? How do you plan to identify and cultivate this new form of architectural wisdom at Yum Brands?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that sort of two-pronged question there. So like, one, does it change? And then how do we cultivate that? One of this, I don't know, maybe I say it's counterintuitive, but now it makes sense to me, but it was counterintuitive to me. It was like, does this AI tooling for engineers more strongly benefit the junior engineer or the senior engineer? And I think I am strongly in the camp that I think it more strongly benefits the senior engineer, right? If you look, like even in the talk you just gave right before we sat down, if you look at how senior engineers kind of bring these tools to bear, a huge difference is, one, they already know the shape of the thing that they want to build. They could have likely built it entirely on their own if they wanted to, and they're using it as like a time-saving thing for them. So they are bringing taste for how the thing is going to be built, and then in that context that they're building, they are providing all that rich language around the problem space, rather than somebody who doesn't know what, they know the end result they want, but they're not providing enough guidance in the implementation details to get that good result that they want. So I think it strongly benefits senior engineers. Whenever we look at junior engineers, like an example, you can see this play out even in like the Reddit or Discord communities that have sort of built up around these tools. If you go post by post in these, it's funny. There's this very interesting dichotomy. One post will say how terrible these tools are. They're awful. And they get like they suck, or they're degraded or whatever. And the next post will be like, no, this is great. Like, I'm saving so much time. And as I was reading these, I was kind of putting people into two camps. Like, one are people that I would say are either a very junior or maybe not the traditional engineers at all, and they are using the tools laudably to try to build something that they could have not built before, right? Otherwise, they would have needed an engineer or pay somebody to do so, and they're trying to bring something into the world, and they're trying to build it. But then, and it works, I think, initially really well for them. But then as the code base grows, as the requirements grow, because they don't have sort of that backing skill, they start to compound technical debt, cognitive debt, because they don't really know how it works. And over time, then they kind of view it as like the tool failing. They're like, oh, like, this is terrible. And then they're switching tools a lot. Then you have, like, I would consider a bunch of professional engineers who view it all as gravy. They're like, no, I can do this stuff myself. And like, the way that they use those tools is very different. They'll course correct, they'll stop in the middle and be like, nope, you're doing this, or this is circuitous, or we already have this thing, or they're ensuring that their agents.md or Claude.md files have the requisite, context in order to guide these tools better. And for them, because they already kind of knew what they wanted, they just get way, way, way better results. So then you kind of get to the question of, how do you cultivate this knowledge then in juniors in an era when you can sort of very quickly generate a ton of code, right? Code that you may not understand super well, but like, and I think this is a problem that a lot of industries are grappling with. It's not unique to engineering. You can imagine like college professors, like how do you cultivate good writing in an era when, writing essays is super cheap and can be done, right? It's the same thing. You have to get reps in, and you have to intuitively, deeply understand the thing that you're doing. And I don't think that goes away. I think there is a smart way for juniors to use these tools, right? And there's a not so smart way. The smart way is take a pass at writing the thing yourself one time, right? Write the thing, do your attempt. Then if you want to create a new repo, create a branch, go ask the AI tooling to do it, right? And then compare and contrast maybe the thing that you've done. And even ask the AI to critique your implementation. Like, to me, that's super smart. And that's bringing these new tools to be a huge leverage for learning. But if all you do is jump straight to the conclusion, you have not applied any of the effort to get the scars that you mentioned earlier, then you're not going to progress strongly, towards that senior engineer. You're going to lean on the tools very much, and you're going to be in that camp that the people on Discord and Reddit often are, where they're having a lot of problems.
100%. It's funny. I see those posts too. And one thing that I've started to notice, even with some maybe college students that are coming out or self-taught, they've leveraged AI so much that they're missing some foundational basics, which kind of makes me very nervous, if I'm honest, especially because education is like a big factor of what I do and who I am. We do a cohort program with our media group called Dallas Software Developers that we don't monetize. And I'm very anti-AI for the cohort program. And the reason why is, and I've told them this, I'm very transparent. If our goal is to ship something fast, let's use AI to the max. If our goal is to build something that we understand, that we could talk about technically, guide people through and answer detailed questions about, this is going to kill us. And so your goal of what you want to do is very important. And even in an enterprise level organization, I think if you're having your developers just build something for the sake, we got to ship this out, I think that's a great thing. But if you're building something very high architected and detailed, it may benefit you to pull back on the AI a little bit, be like, I want you to understand everything about this microservice. Then let's go for speed, but get that foundational understanding first. Have you write the documentation, have the AI finesse it afterwards. Get that understanding first. Because it's the same thing like Stack Overflow, where people were like just copying and pasting code, but they had no clue what was going on. That was happening at the senior level too, by the way. So like, this is the same scenario, but on extra speed at this point. So that, especially if you're an executive, and I see some of y'all here, that could be something that you think about with your teams as well. I think that's a great approach. Okay, we've seen Coinbase come out and state that their vision of the future of AI is to track the percentage of lines of code across the company that were written by AI. That's the metric. We've seen other companies set goals around the amount of content produced by AI or the number of workers with AI or new workers that they hire due to it. At Young, what is the vision of the future and the goals that you're striving to achieve? What metrics demonstrate the excellence of your team's adoption and utilization of AI? And what types of changes do you look forward to that signal you that you've truly cemented your place as innovators and leaders in this new AI age?
Yeah, I have seen those posts, and I don't know how I feel about them. I feel like, yes, like the LLMs and AI coding is unequivocally a hugely impactful technology. It's going to change our industry. But for me, it's not really about tracking metrics of lines of code, just like I don't judge engineers today by the amount of lines of code that they write. So that's like an input metric, not really an output metric for me. So those things don't resonate as strongly with me. I also think that, like, I sometimes see where people almost sort of project this fear that, like, if you aren't on AI coding tooling today, the things are moving so fast, you're going to be left behind. I strongly disagree with this. Like, one, the stuff is still changing. It's still wet cement. The stuff is still changing so much that, there are some durable skills you can pick up, but the best practices are changing every 6 months, in my opinion. And the best practices of 6 months ago are getting integrated and built into the tooling, such that you don't even have to do many of the things that you did have to do 6 months ago. So I don't think the bus is leaving the station. And I also think that, like, if you think about the different paradigm shifts that have happened sort of in engineering, even in my career, right? I remember originally getting answers on Usenet, and then I remember everybody had fat tomes of books behind them because that you wanted that sort of dense material that you could look something up. And then it sort of started transitioning online, but it was on terrible websites, like Experts Exchange and stuff. And then eventually Stack Overflow came, and like, I never had to, no manager ever came to me and says, like, Matt, I want you using Stack Overflow, man. You need to use Stack Overflow. I was like, no, I was using Stack Overflow because it was way better. And in that case, I feel like it's going to be like water is going to flow through the passive least resistance here. let the results speak for themselves. These tools are going to provide leverage and benefit to developers. And if they do provide durable leverage and benefit to users, like, it is going to proliferate and flourish on its own. So I don't know, that's a little bit of my take. Like, I also think deep, strong technical expertise, as we talk about, is still a very important skill. So you hear a lot about people saying that these skills are devalued in the future. I think they're more important than ever. I don't think we're at peak developer even yet. I still think that, like, development as a cohort is going to grow. And, these tools, somebody compared them to like a power tool, right? It kind of amplifies the skill of the user. I was trying to think about how to articulate this, because whenever I think about, like, whenever I use Claude Code, like, how does it make me feel about my capabilities when I'm using it? And I feel like if the horizon of tasks that I can do, not just like output and quantity, but just the horizon of tasks that I can do, if that is like whenever I'm using these tools, it's like N+1 for me, meaning that there are adjacent tasks to my skill that I maybe would not try before that I definitely would try today. So if before I felt like writing a Linux kernel module might be a little bit outside my comfort zone, and maybe I don't know if I want to do it or not, I think I would definitely try that today. And I think it's like, so to me, that's another hugely impactful thing of this, is that you can have that sort of M+ fog of war expanding for everybody. So I don't know, that's a little bit how I think about it. I don't think that, we do track some of the vanity metrics from the AI coding tooling, but that's really less about trying to track individual developer performance, and it's about trying to articulate the value to the internal business stakeholders, so that way we can purchase the AI tooling. So I really consider those kind of vanity metrics for that, and it's about making the business case internally. It's not about measuring the teams.
Yeah, he said two interesting things to me. One, especially on lines of code, I'm so glad that you don't consider the metric, because I get 80% of the code base written in no time, 60% will be bloat. Like, we could easily get those lines.
I want deleted lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, like, it's true. A lot of people aren't using fat books anymore, right? Which is a great thing that we wrote a book.
That's true. That's absolutely
really great time.
Yeah.
We really nailed that one. All right. So we'll go to the final question. I think we've covered a lot. And so looking ahead, we know AI will continue to commoditize pure execution. That's not a risk, it's a reality. Let's assume that AI will relentlessly commoditize the act of technical execution. With that as a given, what do you believe are the uniquely human skills, like persuasion, empathetic design, strategic foresight, or cross-domain thinking, that will become exponentially more valuable, especially in a place like this? You have so many domains here. If you were advising your own teams today on where to invest their personal development to be indispensable in 2030, what would you tell them right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think even before AI coding, whenever I look at some of the most valuable team members that we have, they are team members that strongly understand the business domain that we're working in, because then they're able to kind of bring their skills to bear on problems. They're able to talk with the product owners and the business leaders about the things that we should build, and they contribute very strongly to the final shape of the product. Developers or engineers that, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. Like, maybe like for them, it is the act of writing code that is the thing for them. Like, you get less value out of it, right? Because you're not able to sort of strongly leverage all of that rich business knowledge. So to me, the big skill set that I would encourage people to do is whatever domain you work in, like, understand the domain. If you can do that, like, you're going to be successful.
Thank you all.
Yeah.